Are you a HDB seller who is on the fence thinking about whether to upgrade this year or even next year? And right now we have this news article from Business Times that says that HDB were to raise the BTO supply by 10%. And what does this mean to you? So in today's video, I'm going to go through everything about what my thoughts will be for the 2026 HDB resale market outlook and how that will affect you. If you're someone who is looking to upgrade maybe this year or next year, should you be doing this year or next year? This video will really help you to answer all these questions. Hi, my name is Nicholas. If you're new to this channel, I mainly do real estate insights, real estate content. I share my personal journey, my own selling and buying journey. I do a lot of transactions from HDB, condo, and I also help a lot of HDB upgraders like yourself to upgrade from a HDB to a condo as well. So I do think that you'll be able to learn something in this video. So if you are interested in this kind of content, please consider to subscribe my channel. It will really help me to grow. So today's video, I just want to touch on this very recent article that HDB were to raise BTO supply by 10% to $55,000. I think it's great news for Singaporeans in total because more BTO supply means that more people can afford to buy houses earlier. They don't need to wait so long and they have more options, because we all know that how many people try to apply BTO, but then it's always don't know how many times oversubscribed it is, and it's always a pain to hear about all this. I do think personally, from a consumer point of view, it's a good thing that HDB is doing this. But if you are a HDB homeowner today and you are looking to potentially sell your HDB to upgrade, is this good news for you? So this is what we're going to deep dive today. So right now, what are we facing today? In today's situation, HDB resale prices has continued to go up, but the growth rate has started to moderate, means that it has started to slow down a bit compared to last time. If we look right here, the last quarter for second quarter 2025, the percentage change is the smallest at 0.9%. Previously, it was 1.6%, the previous quarter 2.6, 2.7, 2.3%. The latest quarter only 0.9%. So that's something to take note. The HDB growth is starting to slow down. Then, right now, we also know that there's a surge in upcoming supply. I apologize that this is very blurry, but I'm going to highlight this. In 2025, 8,000 flats have achieved the minimum occupation period. Why is this important? Because this refers to supply into the HDB resale market. Likely there will be a lot of people or a group of people who has obtained MOP and they want to sell because of various reasons. So these are also your potential competition. But the key thing I want to highlight is this. Do you see in 2026, 13,500 flats will obtain MOP, and this is a huge multiplier from the 8,000 flats this year, and next year there will be 13,500. This is a huge jump. But in 2027, there will be 15,000 flats. 2028, 19,500. Why is there such a big jump? I think because during COVID period, if you recall, COVID happened in 2020 and they failed to deliver all the flats, most of the flats in 2020 itself because of the construction delay. So then because of the delay, they still try to ramp up supply, and 2021 onwards, then they start to deliver the HDBs. So that's why we are getting all these flats during that time to achieve MOP in the same time period, and that's why the flats obtaining the MOP is as such today. So what that means is that you will have more competition next year onwards, and the competition is going to be quite intense. And once again, more BTO flats. Of course, the BTO flats, how does it affect you? Maybe a first-timer buyer who is coming in, they can either consider BTO or resale. But personally, I don't think that is a very close comparison, because someone who wants to buy resale HDB might not want to wait for the BTO, or someone who is buying the resale HDB may not be eligible for the BTO itself. To me, the point about the increase in the MOP flats is a much significant fact compared to this point. Then HDB also mentioned they only want prices to move in tandem with income growth, which means if income doesn't increase as much, if the economy doesn't grow as much, or your median income doesn't grow as much, then they don't want HDB prices to go up so much. That makes a lot of sense, because if they allow prices to increase further, much higher compared to what we can afford, then who can afford HDB? Then HDB will have a social issue, a lot of people will be complaining they cannot afford HDBs, then that will be even a worse off situation. So I do think as a country, this is a very, very good policy. But what does it mean to you as a homeowner? If they only want to peg the resale prices to income growth, that would mean that if, let's say, the economy don't do so well, which we think maybe might be the case because of the tariff situation, or you just look at your own situation, has your income increased significantly over the last few years, or has your peers, you think, increased in terms of their income? If you don't think that's the case, then likely income growth, I don't think is that significant. Then that will mean that potentially we will not foresee HDB prices to increase so much as well. So this is a very important factor I do think that you need to consider. It's a good policy, just that as a homeowner, if you are sitting on profits right now, your profits might be eroded. That's just something to take note. But of course, the good news is that HDB is also considering to remove the 15-month wait-out period. Why are they doing this? Because they also know with the slower growth, with the increase in supply, with the point that they want to peg prices to income growth, likely the prices will fall or will moderate. That's why they will allow the 15-month wait-out period to remove maybe by end of next year, because they said before 2027. But we need to think about when they remove, who are the people that will benefit? The people who benefit will likely be maybe 5-room homeowners, maybe they will benefit a bit, or people who are owning the younger HDB flats, because younger HDB flats tend to attract younger people, for example. Because right now in today's market, anybody who is above 55 years old, if they want to buy a 4-room flat and smaller, they can immediately buy after selling their condo, their private property. So this group of HDBs, I don't think will be affected by the 15-month wait-out period, because right now, people who want to buy, they can buy. It's just targeting the younger people who are not 55 years old, or targeting the people who want to buy a bigger HDB flat. These people may stand to benefit. But in my opinion, if the macro aspect, the macro goal is still to make sure that the prices move in terms of the income growth, then I do think that HDB will closely monitor the band of prices that they move. If anytime the price were to be out of their aim, I think more cooling measures may come. So that's something to take note. I do think that they'll monitor very closely, and I'm sure there are a lot of scholars behind studying all this price pattern. If they were to remove this, I don't think the increase will be too significant in terms of prices. Another thing to take note is also the declining interest rate. Actually, I think this will affect more to the private property purchase, because we all know when interest rate decrease, property prices tend to increase, and the property prices in the private property actually increase much faster. Later I will show you more about this. And today you can find the interest rate at less than 2%, and you see that the floating rate over here is 1.91% cheapest by HSBC. The fixed rate cheapest is 1.85%. So I learned something from my CEO before. If you see that the fixed package is cheaper than the floating package, it's likely that the floating rate, the SORA rate, will continue to drop. That's why they put the fixed rates cheaper. If not, nobody will go for the fixed rates. So it's likely that SORA will continue to drop, and this 1.85 is already used to predict in the future what will be the rates like. There is still a gap, but honestly, I do think that below 2% interest rate is very, very cheap compared to last time I paid like 3-4% when I first bought my own property, and that was very, very scary. With all this, I do think more people will look into buying property, especially for an investment vehicle, especially in the private property segment. So let's go through the historical price trend of HDB. Right now, we are in the Q3 2025 where the prices start to drop a bit, but I wouldn't comment too much about that. We already know that the price growth has moderated, dropped a bit. But I want to show you, look at this phase where prices remain fairly stagnant, and the prices really only increase due to COVID because of the housing shortages. But actually, HDB long-term goal has always to make sure housing prices remain affordable, remain stable, and remain pegged to affordability. And that's why for the longest period, 2014 all the way to pre-COVID days, HDB prices have been flat. So my guess is that if they're going to use back the same aim, I do think that we're going to revisit this period of stagnancy in terms of prices. Of course, if the economy does well and everybody benefit and people's income increase, then HDB prices will also increase. But as we see over here, I don't think the economy, or rather the people's income, increased that much. That's why HDB prices remain pretty flat at this area. But another thing to take note is that before it reaches here, do you see that prices actually came down? So what I'm trying to show you is that it is possible that right now we are at the highest point. It is also possible that the prices can come down before it moderates off flat. And how would that affect you? If you are someone looking to sell, use your earnings to move to your next property, be it a condo or even a landed or a new launch. You need to consider if the price drop, that will erode your capital appreciation, it will erode your purchasing power to your next property. But I just mentioned, because of the falling interest rate, likely private property will also take off, will also increase in prices, and then you may have a situation where your HDB is flat, but the private property increase. Then the longer you wait, you may come in here and then this is your gap. But the faster you go for it, the gap might be smaller, it might be easier for you to afford. So this is something that you need to take note. I truly believe if you wait until next year, maybe you might be even more priced out for the upgrade. So let's look into more micro scenario where what happened back in those days when the prices were flat. So I'm taking a few areas. Firstly, Punggol 5-room HDB, this is at block 645. I want to show you two transactions. You see, 2012 and 2014. So 2012 was still a high. It's over here, pretty peak area. So for this block, right, do you see that in December 2012, the highest done was $592,000, almost $600,000 transaction. But for the whole of 2013, there is no transaction. So for the whole 2 years, there was no transaction until a $440,000 transaction, and this is $100,000+ drop. So why is this the case? It is likely that after this $592,000 transaction, there are still home sellers who want to sell. But as the economy starts to come down, or rather as the housing market starts to come down, buyers don't want to pay that kind of money anymore. But the sellers who are very fixated at this $592,000 transaction, they are like, no, I'm not going to sell cheaper because I just saw my neighbor transacting at $592,000. Why should I sell cheaper? But as time goes by, no buyers wants to buy. The amount of supply of people who want to sell in this block may also increase. So maybe from 3 units to 5 units to 7 units. It will come a point in time, maybe 2 years later, where someone is more realistic and say, okay lah, I cut loss, I sell you cheaper, and that transaction happens to be $440,000. And that sets the new benchmark for this block and also sets the new benchmark for this time period. And that's why the prices became $400,000+ from here on. And that's something that can also happen in your case if the prices do come back into this phase. And that's something I want to warn you guys about. Another situation, another area, Bukit Batok, this is in the west. Same thing. In 2013, it was a high, July 2013. Between 2013 and 2015, no transactions. And then the next transaction, the price dropped, and it drops by $40,000. So same thing, maybe there are people who want to sell, but no buyers wanted to pay that price. So then as time goes by, one home seller became more realistic, really needed to sell, sold cheaper, and that sets a new benchmark. And even in 2016, the prices even fall until $635,000. So I would say you need to really consider whether or not are we going to go back into that kind of market where prices may drop. Another situation, Tampines 4-room, this is in the east. Let me show you 2015, 2013, $500,000, and it drops by $80,000, and this is quite significant. I'm saying it is a possibility. I don't know whether next year it will really become this kind of situation, but from how the news is coming, there might be a slight dip. I'm not saying the dip is going to be as intense, but the idea is there. The idea is that it is possible. Just don't take things for granted that your HDB prices can continue and will continue to increase, because I'm showing you case studies where things like that can happen and something that you should be ready for. So I want to show you at the same time frame between a HDB and a condo, what's the difference. So I took first quarter 2013 compared to first quarter of 2020, and this is the pre-COVID period where HDB prices was relatively flat. We see that actually HDB drops by 10% loss generally. This is the whole Singapore. Yet, for condo, it went up by 24%. So this is the exact scenario where I say that the longer you wait, the gap actually widens. So if you are someone who is looking to upgrade, whether it's this year or next year, then I highly urge you to consider, why not considering this year? Before the huge MOP supply hits the market, you start to market first, get the dips, and then move on to your private property before the lower interest rate push up the private property prices even more. So this is my take of how the 2026 resale HDB market outlook will be like. I may not be right, but I have a good feeling that this might be the direction that we are going to see. But I want to hear what you think. Please let me know what you think in the comment section down below. I may be wrong, but yeah, please share your thoughts and I want to see all of them. I'll read all of your comments. I'll reply all of them as well. If not, I'll see you in the next one.